We don't need to tell you about the history, but we'll tell you about the history because, listen, you kind of lay out historical facts and you say this is the way things are trending. But what are trends made? They're made to be broken, right? Things go the opposite way. For the Ottawa Senators, franchise history 0-8 when down in a playoff series, 2-0. Now, you could turn that around, flip that around, and go, well, they're 0-8, but the last time the 8 was more than a decade ago. So it's been a long time since the Sens have trailed in a series 2-0. A lot of these guys were about 8 years old or younger the last time, except maybe Claude Giroux and David Perron.
I just hear you saying they're due. That's all that is.
That's the way you
Yeah.
flip that stat like that upside down. And the Maple Leafs, speaking of not used to this, have never this one when I read it after they won the game the other night, haven't been up in a playoff series 2-0 since 2002, 23 years ago. Now they missed the playoffs a bunch of years as well in the middle of all that. But for a team that's right now on the longest streak of making the playoffs, 9 straight years. I guess that explains why they've only won one playoff series in the previous 8 years is that they never grab a series by the whatever you need to. The gonads? Yeah? Okay.
The
Grab
horns?
it by the gonads
The cojones.
and the cojones and take control of the series early. They've been unable to do that. So this is a bit uncharted waters for Toronto as well.
It does seem a little bit different for the Leafs than in years gone by, and we've heard a lot from Toronto about why that is from some of the analysts, but they've been there enough where yes, they should have the gained actual experience over the Ottawa Senators. So I would expect them to be better early on in the series and to be able to control the pace and to get off to better starts because that's been a downfall for the Sens. They've been behind, allowing 2 goals on 4 shots in both games. That's a tough start. And whether you blame Allmark or not, or whether they're stoppable pucks or not, you're still down 2-0 and fighting from behind. If the Sens can come out, get a lead, we could see something different. You force the Leafs to play a different brand of hockey. And that's one thing where I do think that the Leafs have improved under Craig Berube is playing with the lead and not trying to push, not taking chances, not taking a Drake Batherson chance in overtime to try and create some goals. They take it when it's there for them.
Yeah. I have found it's so unleaf-like based on what we've seen in years past, just in terms of their commitment to team defense, right? The one of the most noticeable things, if you've watched the first 2 games of this series, is I mentioned it with Sanderson and Shabbat. It's kind of like you're used to them lugging the puck up the ice, right? That was the template a lot during the regular season. And then, when Dylan Cousins came and Shane Pinto as well, them taking, his big bodies, taking the puck and taking it through the middle of the ice and into the offensive zone. There's been none of that from Ottawa because Toronto has made the middle of the ice just full of landmines. There's no straight line. There's nowhere you can go straight with speed. So they have done a very good job at clogging up the neutral zone, forcing Ottawa to dump it in. Now, Ottawa, to their credit, I think they have not tried to, they've not tried to do what's not there. So they throw it in there. They let the Leafs defense go back. They've been pounding them on the forecheck, and that's a long-term play, right? That's putting deposits in the bank for what you hope to be able to cash in later in a series. So they've been committed to that, but we're only 3 games in to what they hope will be a long, now at this point, 6 or 7 game series. They haven't been able to cash that check yet, but that's been the template of what they've had to do, and I'll give them credit. They have stuck with that. It just hasn't paid off in terms of wins yet.
When you do retrieve that puck and you do get offensive zone time like they had in the second and third period in game 2, in the third period in particular, you have to find a way to get pucks through. And whether it's going wide of the net on purpose, like we saw in the Florida game on the great tip by Reinhardt, I believe it was, that just sent it up in the top corner, you've got to find a way to get the puck directed towards the net and not into shin pads, especially with sifters. If you're setting a sifter on goal, that has to get through because they're blocking that, and it doesn't hurt. They're not paying the price to block a shot. You let go a slap shot and a guy stepping in front of a 95-mile-per-hour slap shot, you know what? Good on him. He's going to feel it. He may think twice next time. Deposit in the bank.
Yep.
These are all things that have to get done in order for the Sens to get back in this series. And it flips to home ice. We'll see what happens.
32-6 were block shots. So the Leafs had 32 block shots in the last game. And you're right. It seemed like in a lot of cases there were, you call them sifters, kind of wristers that were kind of, and there's not just one Leaf guy, there's 2 and 3 guys in front of the net. And as you said, those are the shot blocks you don't mind making as a defensive player. Those are the easy ones. So yeah, I look at it, and this is where the coaching staff gets paid the big dollars, right? This is the adjustments that have to be made within a series. You see what the Maple Leafs have done and how well they've played it so far defensively. You have to come up with some sort of game plan to try to. For me, it's just funneling more pucks to the net. I know they've had a lot of possession. I know they've had a lot of shots and a lot of shot attempts and all of that. But there isn't, for me still, I'd be trying to create more chaos right in front of the net. I'd be trying to get the puck down low and just get it to the net. Because I think Stolarz has been able to see a lot so far. He's been very good. There's no denying it. He's won 10 straight games going back to the regular season. He had the best goals against in the entire NHL this season. Credit where credit is due. The guy's playing well, but I don't think he's got to be challenged in a new way. And I think the new way is, and maybe it's what we saw from Ridley Gregg in that set 2 with him. Maybe that's what you need to do to get him off his game. Get right in his grill, because what's happened so far has not really thrown him off his game very much.
I love your idea of getting the puck down low. And that's not just directed towards the net. Put it into the corner. Send pucks from the corner to the front of the net. Create chaos. He's a monster. He's a giant. Put pucks into his skates. See what happens. His rebound control has been subpar, in my opinion. He hasn't been able to.
Can't catch pucks very cleanly. He did the one on Cousins, right? The one late in regulation. That was a good, clean catch. But for the most part, the pucks that go in his glove, he does drop a lot of them.
Pucks hit him. And
Yeah,
they fall at his feet. You've got to find a way to get to those before he's able to.
But
find
you got to
them.
be there.
Yes,
that's the issue, right?
But that's getting the puck down low as well, and creating that chaos that you discussed.
Yeah, it can't be okay. We got the puck and there's a rebound. Like, if it takes you 3 strides to get to that loose puck, you're not going to get there. That's the whole idea of having some guys that are right in his grill.
Yeah,
I think that has to be the game plan.
The Drake Batherson goal in Game 1, where he has to fight for it. You're not getting there on most occasions. Stolarz took his time. He probably could have covered that one up, no problem.
Right.
You have to be a little bit closer than what Batherson was, despite I love the fact that Batherson fought through what he did to get to that puck, but you want to be a little bit tighter there. You want to be able to find those pucks. The Nick Suzuki goal to tie the game in Game 1 for the Montreal Canadiens against Washington, he's on the outskirts, but he's able to find that puck and the calmness that he had. There's layers to it. You need some of the chaos in front for Suzuki to be able to find that puck and be able to deposit it in the back of the net. So there's things that Ottawa can do for sure, but the Leafs have done a good job of clogging up not only the neutral zone, but in front of their own net as well. That's where you need to just throw pucks in. Three of the goals, the first 3 goals in Game 2 were off body parts or off.
Welcome to the playoffs, baby.
Not off the stick. So throw pucks towards the net. Ottawa came close on a couple of occasions. The goal that went in off Riley, there was one very similar moments after, I believe, off a Leafs player, off a Sens player that just went wide of the net. It's about bounces as well.
Yep.
You've got to be able to find some.
A little bit of puck luck for sure. You mentioned off the start that, starts, leads in games has been a huge issue for Ottawa so far. They have not led in either of the first 2 games, and in fact, they have been down early and down by more than a goal, right? 2-0 within the first, 12 minutes of the first game and 8 minutes of the second game. So you're constantly battling back and against a good structured defensive team. It's just hard to do. It's hard to score in the playoffs to begin with, let alone a team that's playing well defensively and a goalie who is right now on top of his game. So somehow, some way, better starts. Home crowd will have something to do with all of that. Here is Sens head coach Travis Green on the starts to games.
I don't know how you stop it. It's not like you're just going to stop them, but they got a couple lucky bounces, and but they're also going to the net and getting pucks there. And but I've liked our game. I don't think even though we fell behind 2-0, we weren't getting outplayed drastically or anything like that. And this game is, like I've said it many times, you can play well and be behind. And our team's done a good job for the last 3 or 4 months, if things aren't going their way, resetting and during the game and not getting away from it and moving on.
All right. So there is Travis Green. I think, and we'll go back to our TSN 1200 tool and equipment store web poll question from yesterday. What needs to be fixed most for the Sens to get back in the series? Starts, the penalty kill, winning key faceoffs, or just finishing And more than 50% of you said it is the starts. It is getting a lead at 54% that ended up winning that web poll ahead of penalty killing, finishing, and winning key faceoffs only got 4%. So listen, for a bunch of different reasons, including, hey, let's get something different for a change. Let's play with the lead. Getting the lead tonight. I know, easier said than done. You know, it's not like you snap your fingers and go, okay, we're allowed to have a 1-0 lead now. It's not the way it works. You actually have to go out and do that somehow, some way. But we kind of just talked about the different ways possibly that you can at least try to enhance your chances of getting that first goal tonight.
And I think the crowd is going to play a big factor. I would hope, I'm anticipating a large contingent. 75-80% Sens fans.
You think it's going to be that high?
I do.
Right.
I think that the organization has done just about everything possible.
Yep.
To make sure that will happen. And I guess I'm more hopeful than expectations, but I think that the crowd will play a big factor into it. And I think that part of what Ottawa's done well so far, getting pucks in deep, the checks in on the forecheck have been that'll pay dividends here in today's game, getting things in deep and thriving off the crowd once again. We heard it early in the games for the Leafs where they were able to connect hit after hit and the crowd was responding. I think it's going to be twofold, threefold tonight for the Sens if they can get in on the forecheck and do the same type of thing and feed off the crowd, not get overhyped, not get over-energized out of it, but
get energy.
Get energy from it and try and create some offense that way.
So you think the crowd will be, and it'll be a guess. It'll be an eyeball for everybody. You think it'll be what, percentage-wise tonight?
73%.
Where are we getting this official number from as well? Yeah, I was talking.
Okay, we're going to go 75 then. So you think it's three-quarter Sens fans? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
My memory was kind of, I didn't do a lot of games back in the early 2000s, but I asked Ian Mendez, back in the early 2000s, what was the breakdown? What was his best guess of the breakdown during the early battles of Ontario? And they were vast majority of Sens fans at that time. I think he put it at about 70-30 for Sens fans there. And I know I kind of brought up the discussion point last week about, hey, if the Sens don't come back with a split, will there be some angst amongst some fans? Will there be some anger? Are they just going to sell tickets? That doesn't seem to be the case, which is a good thing.
No, that was a bad take.
That was not a bad take.
That was a bad for Game 4.
And
they lose tonight. That's maybe a discussion.
It came up on the post-game show from two separate callers.
Yeah, but okay, but okay.
No. It was a discussion.
It's a bad take.
No, it was a pretty good
callers
take.
have bad takes. That's a bad take by you. People weren't going to sell their tickets for something they've waited 8 years for. If they lost the first two games of the series. Bad take. But anyway, go ahead.
Not. But I think tonight will be more. I think we're going to see, just because of the extra effort that was put in by the Sens organization, I'm going to put it at 80-20. I think it's going to be crazy Sens town tonight at the CTC.
Okay.
And you heard Brady Tkachuk talk about it.
Yeah.
We're going to count on them. The fans, they're going to show up. They're going to do their part.
Well, the die is cast now. If anybody had tickets, for the most part, whoever wanted tickets I'm talking about on the resale or what on the resale market or whatever, you probably already have the tickets, right? At this point, you've made your decision. If you were a Sens fan and had tickets, and you decided to bail, like you're suggesting, Hammer, that some people are, and you are willing to sell them to Leaf fans or whatever, that decision has already been made, and a Leaf fan, whether they've come from Toronto or whether they're somebody who lives locally anyway, has made their decision. They're going to part with hundreds of dollars to go to a game. That's not a decision you usually take lightly.
Yeah.
It's like these tickets are very expensive.
And let's not forget, too, let's remind Sens fans as well, sometimes tickets get released on the day of the game.
Yes.
Today.
Absolutely. Then
So
there will be.
Keep taking a
Well,
look.
I can't guarantee that,
No,
but
exactly.
I feel very good. The NHL will always make teams hold back because for player allotment, et cetera. So there will be some tickets probably available. And I'll say for concerts, usually it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, yeah, good reminder
Take
there
a
for
look.
people to check if you're talking about, face value tickets potentially for tonight. I know that the Senators tried their best to, and they essentially just and Cyril Leader made this point last week at one point where he said, he kind of said in a roundabout. He said it without saying it. If this ends up being a bigger than we hope for Leafs crowd tonight, that's on you, the fans, right? We did the best that we could do to try to make sure that these tickets got in the hands of Sens fans. I'm not as optimistic as you guys. I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to what it typically is in a regular season game, which is what 80% Leaf fans. It felt like in the last few seasons for regular season games, but I do think it'll probably be close to 50-50. Right. Maybe 60-40 Sens, but I will be the least optimistic. It'll still be much better than it usually is. I'll put it that way. But anyway, it's hard to gauge, right? We'll be eyeballing it tonight. It'll be better than it usually is. And the other thing is the crowd will be very enthusiastic. They will be very loud. And so the Senators should get a very good push from the crowd, at least to start the game. Here's Linus Ullmark on what he expects the atmosphere to be like tonight at the CTC.
I don't even know if I can imagine it. It's hard. I'm excited about seeing what the Ottawa fan base can bring, though. I'm really excited about that.
All right. Well, if past history dictates what we're going to see tonight, Linus, it's going to be loud. That is one thing we can say about Canadian Tire Center. For playoffs past, and I know it's been a long time for everybody, that is a very, very, very loud building.
Yeah.
And where, this is a government town and everybody's kind of laid back and, there's just not a lot of emotion in this city. There's something about the game of hockey and NHL playoffs that brings everybody's loud out. So we will see that in evidence tonight for the first time in. Did you do the math on the calculation on the number of days since we've had a playoff game?
I asked Google AI how many days it's been since May 23rd,
2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the number that Google AI came up with. Gemini.
Do we trust it?
Of course. Well, we trust computers to do everything.
Okay. 2,893 days since Ottawa last hosted an NHL playoff game.
That's a lot.
2,893.
It's a long time. That's a lot of days to count if you're going through it manually, JR.
Yeah, that's a lot of shows to go through when you're a host as well.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Not that we want to dig up, old bones here, but just think about everything that's occurred within this franchise. Exclude this year, everything Sens fans have been through. Tonight should be an absolute celebration of what they have survived.
Yeah,
that's a lot of pent up.
Yes.
Everything
Yep.
that's going to be let out tonight. That's
Yep.
going to be fantastic.